Ever feel like you're constantly hearing about these scientific breakthroughs that seem more like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie?
Yeah.
We're going to try to decode one of those today. CRISPR. You've probably heard whispers of it, this whole gene editing thing. But what does it actually mean to rewrite the code of life? That's our deep dive today.
And you know what's so fascinating about this is we're not even talking about some new invention.
Yeah.
CRISPR is actually a system that bacteria have been using for millions of years to fight off viruses.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So we're talking about bacteria, these tiny organisms, and they have a defense mechanism that's more advanced than anything that we've been able to engineer.
It's really quite incredible.
That's wild. Well, we're lucky enough to have gotten some insights from Stanley Chi for this. He's a bioengineer at Stanford who's kind of a leading voice in all this CRISPR research. And his work is really what's helping us unpack all of this because it's complicated stuff. So before we get into all of the mind-blowing possibilities of CRISPR, let's break down how it actually works. You ready to dive into the world of bacterial immune systems?
Yeah, let's do it. So think of it this way. Bacteria, they use CRISPR to create a genetic, most wanted poster wall of viruses they've encountered.
Okay, a most wanted poster wall. I like that. I need to hear more.
So every time that a bacterium encounters a new virus, it takes a snapshot of the virus's DNA, and it stores it in its own genetic code. And this snapshot basically acts like a wanted poster. It helps the bacteria to recognize and target that specific virus if it ever shows up again.
So the bacteria have their own internal security system that's constantly on the lookout for known threats.
Exactly. And the way it targets the virus is fascinating. The bacteria create this molecule called guide RNA, which is basically a genetic copy of the wanted poster. This guide RNA then roams around the cell, and if it bumps into any viral DNA that matches its sequence, it latches on.
Okay, so the guide RNA is like this heat-seeking missile that's programmed to hunt down and destroy that specific viral DNA. Pretty cool, right? But how does this bacterial defense mechanism, how does that translate to editing genes in a human cell?
Well, that's where things get really, really interesting. Scientists have figured out how to harness this natural system and reprogram it. So they can essentially create custom-designed guide RNAs that target specific genes in any organism, from bacteria to plants to, yes, even humans.
So it's like taking this ancient bacterial weapon and we're aiming it at any gene we want, but instead of destroying the target like it does in bacteria, we can use it to make very precise edits, removing, replacing, or even just tweaking the genetic code. Talk about a game changer.
Absolutely. And what's so remarkable is how much more efficient and precise CRISPR is compared to previous gene editing tools. Imagine like trying to edit a single typo in a massive library full of books with just a magnifying glass. That's what gene editing was like before CRISPR.
I can only imagine the frustration searching through strands of DNA, looking for that one specific sequence to edit. That just sounds incredibly tedious and prone to errors.
Exactly. But with CRISPR, it's like we've gone from that magnifying glass to having a digital search engine for the entire genome. We can pinpoint the exact location of any gene and make changes with this incredible accuracy.
That level of precision, it's like having a GPS system for your genes. It just opens up a world of possibilities, from treating genetic diseases to potentially enhancing certain traits. Speaking of which, in our interview, Chi talks about the potential of CRISPR to tackle some of the biggest challenges in medicine. And it's not just about treating diseases after they occur. He's talking about potentially preventing them altogether.
Yeah, and that's where things get really exciting and, to be honest, a little bit ethically complex.
It's true. This kind of power comes with some pretty big questions. For example, Chi brings up the idea of using CRISPR to potentially cure genetic diseases like cystic fibrosis. Can you imagine a world where we could eliminate inherited diseases altogether?
It's an incredible thought. It is. And while that potential is truly remarkable, it also forces us to grapple with some thorny ethical dilemmas as well.
For sure.
It's like we're on the verge of this whole new era of medicine, one where we're not just treating symptoms, but we're actually addressing the root causes of genetic diseases. And a really good example of this is the case of Victoria Gray. She was the first person to be functionally cured of sickle cell disease using CRISPR.
Wow, it's incredible, right? This disease has affected generations, and now we're talking about actual cures because of this technology. I can only imagine what this means for patients and their families.
It's truly groundbreaking, and sickle cell is just the tip of the iceberg. Researchers are exploring CRISPR therapies for a whole range of genetic conditions now, from cystic fibrosis to Huntington's disease.
It's almost hard to even wrap my head around all of it. But in our interview, he also talks about how CRISPR could go beyond just treating diseases, like engineering drought-resistant crops or even developing new forms of sustainable energy.
Absolutely. We often get really focused on the medical applications. But CRISPR's potential extends way beyond healthcare. Imagine a world where we could engineer crops that can thrive in really harsh climates. That would help to address global food security issues. Or imagine using CRISPR to develop these new sources of biofuels, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels.
Okay, now we're talking about solutions to some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. It's like CRISPR has the potential to reshape our entire world.
It's true. But like any powerful tool, there's always a risk of unintended consequences. One of the concerns that Key raises is the potential for CRISPR to be used for genetic enhancement, rather than just for therapeutic purposes.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting, and to be honest, a little ethically murky. It's one thing to use CRISPR to correct a debilitating genetic disease, but what about using it to enhance desirable traits, like intelligence or athletic ability?
Exactly. That's the ethical tightrope we need to walk. Where do we draw the line between disease prevention and genetic enhancement? And who gets to decide what constitutes a desirable trait? These are all questions that we need to be asking ourselves right now.
It's almost like a sci-fi movie come to life. And then there's the issue of access and equity. Will these CRISPR therapies be available to everyone, or will they only be accessible to the wealthy?
That's a crucial point. And Key is a huge advocate for ensuring equitable access to CRISPR technologies. He stresses the importance of responsible innovation and making sure that these advancements benefit all of humanity, not just a select few.
You know, he also brings up some really fascinating points about using CRISPR for ecological engineering. Can you imagine being able to use gene editing to control invasive species or protect endangered ones?
Yeah, the potential for ecological restoration is huge, but it's also an area where we really need to proceed carefully. Altering entire ecosystems, even with the best of intentions, could have unintended and potentially devastating consequences. We need to carefully weigh the risks and benefits before even considering those kinds of interventions.
It really is a delicate balance. We're talking about these incredibly powerful tools that could reshape the world. And speaking of reshaping the world, in our interview, Chi seemed particularly excited about the potential of CRISPR in the realm of aging.
Yeah, aging is a really interesting area, and not just extending lifespan, which, that's a whole other ethical can of worms.
Yeah.
But improving the quality of life as we age.
Right, because who wants to just live to 100 if those extra years? They're not exactly golden years, right?
Exactly.
So instead of just living longer, imagine being able to live those later years healthier and more vibrantly.
Absolutely. Keyes believes CRISPR could help us understand and potentially target the underlying processes of aging at a cellular level.
So instead of treating age-related diseases as they kind of pop up, we could actually address the root cause of aging itself. That's a whole new paradigm for healthcare.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it gets even more mind-boggling. Kuyat also talked about using CRISPR to engineer microbes. And these microbes could help us address another huge issue, climate change.
Okay, now how do bacteria play into climate change?
Well, so there are some microbes that have this really incredible natural ability to capture carbon dioxide and convert it to other useful substances. And with CRISPR, we could potentially enhance those abilities, turning them into these tiny carbon scrubbing machines.
So we've been searching for ways to combat climate change for years, and it might just be these microscopic bacteria aided by CRISPR that hold the key.
It's a fascinating possibility. And then on top of all of this, there's food production. Imagine using CRISPR to engineer crops. Crops that are more nutritious, more resistant to pests, and that are capable of thriving even in the harshest environments.
So are we talking about like a second green revolution? But this time, it's powered by gene editing.
Yeah, exactly.
We could potentially address global hunger and malnutrition on a scale we never thought possible.
Absolutely. It's an incredibly exciting prospect. And then, to kind of wrap things up, she left us with one final kind of mind-blowing idea. Universal vaccines.
Okay, now that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel. Universal vaccines.
Yeah, so imagine a vaccine. A single vaccine that could provide immunity, not just against one specific virus, but against an entire family of viruses, maybe even viruses that haven't even evolved yet.
Wow. That means no more annual flu shots. No more scrambling to develop new vaccines every time some novel virus emerges.
It'd be incredible, right?
It really would.
It's a bold goal, for sure. But it's one that Key believes is within the realm of possibility. because of all the rapid progress being made in CRISPR research.
Well, it's a lot to take in, but that's what I really love about these deep dives. We get to kind of explore the cutting edge of science and grapple with these big questions that come with these groundbreaking discoveries.
Yeah, and it's clear that CRISPR is more than just hype. It's a powerful tool with the potential to reshape our world in really profound ways, for better or for worse. And as we've seen, it's not just about the science. It's about the ethics, the economics, the societal implications of wielding this kind of power.
It really is. And it's been an incredible journey into this world of CRISPR. It's awe-inspiring. And it's also a bit daunting to think about the possibilities, and frankly, even the responsibilities that come with this technology.
It really highlights the importance of informed discussion and careful consideration as we kind of continue to unlock CRISPR's potential. Because the future really is being written right now. And it's up to all of us to make sure that it's a future that benefits all of humanity.
A future where we can rewrite the code of life. But we do so with wisdom, with caution, and with a commitment to the greater good. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the incredible world of CRISPR. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep your minds open to the possibilities.